Tonight, national security identify individuals in academia, civil society, and media. They are accused of exploiting their influence to incite a coup and destabilize Ghana.
These actors have gained substantial followings on social media, leveraging their influence to disseminate misinformation that threatens our nation's peace and also stability, especially as we approach the critical December 2024 general elections. This is a matter of serious concern.
We heard from the National Security Minister as he lays out the biggest threat to Ghana's security.
That today, from where I sit, I can confidently say that this information is one of the major security challenges that I have to confront with on a daily basis.
This is Top Story with Evans Mensah.
And Top Story is always brought to you by Vodafone. There are individuals in academia, civil society, and the media actively exploiting their influence and following to promote a coup and destabilize Ghana. That's according to the National Security Minister, Kan Dapaah, as he laid out what he considers to be the biggest threat to Ghana's security ahead of the 2024 general elections. Listen to him.
In Ghana, more disconcerting trend is also emerging. Notably, following the coup in Niger, certain individuals in academia, civil society, and the media, you must have observed, have been propagating false narratives in support of a coup or military rule. These actors have gained substantial followings on social media, leveraging their influence to disseminate misinformation that threatens our nation's peace and also stability, especially as we approach the critical December 2024 general elections. This is a matter of serious concern and must not only be a matter of concern to the security operatives, but I think to all of us in the country. Misinformation, whether intentional or inadvertent, from these individuals, because they are influential, poses a significant threat to Ghana's stability. Baseless political commentary undermines public confidence in vital institutions. Loss of confidence in vital institutions like the Electoral Commission and the judiciary can be very dangerous, and potentially they can steer our country towards a perilous path. And I think beyond the erosion of public trust in the institutions of state, which then culminates in public cynicism and skepticism, disinformation also creates a misinformed public whose decisions on policies and elections are influenced by false narratives, a development that also goes to undermine democratic processes. And to put it in a better perspective, misinformation, disinformation can influence voters, can influence them to make decisions which are inconsistent with their best interests. And this could include the election of a bad leader and opting for a bad public policy, all of which can have grave consequences for the survival of a state.
And that's the National Security Minister, Kan Dapaah. Joining me right now is Suleiman Ibrahima. He is Executive Director of the Media Foundation for West Africa. They monitor misinformation, disinformation across the media landscape. He is in civil society and joins us right now with his thoughts on what we just heard there from the national security, who's diagnosing our national security threat. He says the biggest one we currently face is that. Professor Ransford Jampo, Professor of Political Science at the University of Ghana. He's also the president of UTAG, University of Ghana, and joins us right now. Prof, I want to start with you. So the National Security Minister diagnoses a problem. He says it's a trend that individuals in academia, civil society, and media, they are exploiting, leveraging their influence to promote coup and destabilize this country. It's the biggest threat he's facing currently. You agree?
I think generally it appears this was a statement written for the Honorable Minister by somebody who is completely out of touch with the realities on the ground. And the minister just went to read what was written or prepared for him. I have a lot of respect for Kan Dapaah because whether we like it or not, he's one of the key architects working behind the scenes to keep our peace. The fact that there is still peace in spite of hardships isn't all because we are peace-loving. It is also because people like him are working tirelessly behind the scenes to deal with potential troublemakers and to ensure that things are kept always on the quiet. But his analysis and what was written for him about potential fuelers of coup, in my view, is quite jaundiced. He should take a simple read of the literature about the causes of military interventions, including those seminal ones authored by people like Professor Michael Coup. And I think if he does this, he would come to a different conclusion and realization that what was written for him to go and read is completely out of touch with the real situation on the ground. If you want to talk about factors that fuel military interventions and coup, it's not because it's not academia using influences. It's about bad governance. It's about corruption. It's about economic mismanagement. It's about nepotistic appointments. It's about hunger and poverty. It's about the sense of despondency in the system. It's about politicians looting the coffers of the state. It's about opulence living style of many appointees whilst they call on minority or the ordinary people who are suffering to tighten their belt. So you tell people to tighten their belt and then you live in opulence. I mean, if you look at all these things happening, they give consent for people to complain. If you look at all these variables, then they would give consent for the academia and people like trade unions and all of us to complain. And if we are complaining and you describe our complaint as fueling or we using our influences to garner support on the part of people to offer some form of acceptance or support for coups, then it means your analysis is quite misplaced. But like I said, I wouldn't want to blame him too much. He went to read a speech that was prepared for him. I think that if he listens to what we are saying, he will realize that the presentation, in my view, was completely out of touch with reality. Civil society leaders, academia, media, who do they represent? They represent the ordinary people. And so why will anybody want to complain? And these people who are they? They are the ordinary. If you talk about civil society, you are talking about the coming together of various non-state actors that provides a linkage between the government and the governed. Those who are being governed and those who are governing. That's the role of civil society. And so if you hear civil society articulating some of these concerns and you rather regard or describe them as they're using their influence to garner support for military coups, then you yourself, your analysis is quite misplaced. And so with the greatest of respect to the Honorable Minister, it appears he doesn't know what he's talking about. If you want to talk about coups and if you want to talk about antidote to coups, I've always argued the best antidote to coups is good governance.
Stay with me, Prof. I want to bring in Suleiman Abrama. Mr. Abrama, you monitor these things on across the board. Have you observed this trend too in your monitoring?
Well, Evans, I would want to start off by sharing the same sentiments that Professor Jampo has just said in terms of my respect for the Honorable Kan Dapaah. I think that he is certainly one of the finest people that President Coup appointed, and not just that, but also appointed the right position. This is somebody that I would say a very cool-headed person, takes time to analyze issues, engages with different stakeholders, all in the effort to make our country stable. Having said that, I would also re-echo again what Dr. Jampo has said in terms of the analysis that we made. I would start by saying that, look, as Professor Jampo said, yes, we can give credit to Honorable Kan Dapaah for stability that we witnessed, despite the bad governance, the misgovernance, the high levels of corruption, the hassles that people are going through. But the other group that certainly we should credit is civil society, because on daily basis there are conversations going on within civil society about, this challenge, how do we deal with it? How can we help counter the challenge? Youth unemployment and the threat that it poses. As I speak to you, there is a convening that is going to happen in northern Ghana, bringing together the 5 regional coordinating councils to have a conversation about maintaining peace, order, social protection, and so on. Yes, disinformation is a problem across the world. It's not just here in Ghana. And I think in this context, we may be talking more about disinformation rather than misinformation. Because misinformation, in the technical sense of it, is basically about putting out information that you don't know is false, but it turns out to be false. And if we are going by that, I think the very latest fact-checking work that we have done is about a falsehood that was put out by President Coup. Would we then say that the president is deliberately engaging in disinformation? As for example said, many of these people, statements are written for them to go and read. But of course, when it comes to disinformation, that is where people are deliberately putting out information that they know not to be true, and yet they will put it out there for ulterior motives. Here in Ghana, I wouldn't rule it out. It happens. But who are the main perpetrators? I would say the perpetrators are elements within the MPP and the NDC. Yes, the media can sometimes get it wrong, and sometimes acknowledge. Sometimes they would only get to know that what they put out there was perhaps factual. But I don't think that in most instances, the media will put out information out there knowing very well that it is not true, but they just want to foment trouble. Again, as Professor Jampo said, in terms of national security, national stability, the most potent threat is the misgovernance that is happening. The high levels of corruption that is happening. We are lucky that we don't have the situation in Burkina Faso or Niger or Mali with these highly organized terrorist groups that are literally taking parts of these countries. Here in Ghana, our challenge is, as I said, governance, high levels of corruption, nepotism, almost autocratic tendencies in the democracy. And I think these, for me, are the things that we should really, really be worried about.
But what about...
The minister also talks about loss of public confidence, in public institutions. And what do you expect when the president appoints a very known active member of the party to go and become a member of the people who serve as referees in our election? You want people to be quiet and say that, after all, this person was a regional communications officer, the regional elections officer for MPP during the last elections, but going to be a member of the electoral commission. It doesn't matter. Is that what people should take it? You appoint somebody who recently ran on your party's ticket to parliament, onto the bench of the Supreme Court, and you would say that, oh, after all, he said he has resigned from the party in 2020. So people should trust that when he goes out there, he's not going to be partisan. It is never going to be the case. And we have to be realistic. We have to speak truth to each other. And it is out of speaking truth to each other that we keep our democracy stable. It is not about lying to ourselves or basically singing the praises of a government every day. Sometimes I feel the government only feels what is true is when praises are being sung about the government. And that when people are critical, what is happening is that is falsehood. I don't think that kind of mindset or mentality.
But Mr. Brima,
as Temple has said, there is anything that's dangerous for our democracy, dangerous for our stability. The first thing is the misgovernance that is happening, the corruption that is happening, the economic squeeze that is happening, the stealing that is happening, the grabbing of public lands and so on that is happening. People see it. And those are the things that we must deal with.
However, the national security assessment. However, the national security assessment is, in spite of the challenges that you've articulated, and Prof also did articulate the same, the individuals that he has identified in the assessment in civil society, academia, and the media, he says they're putting out the falsehood with the intention to support coup and military instability in this country. I mean, hasn't it got a point there? If that is the national security assessment, and clearly if they've identified these people and he says it's a trend, then they may have definitely been monitoring these individuals over time. If you have concerns about misgovernance, you use appropriate channels to deal with it. You go to the polls and you vote the leaders out. But his point is, these individuals in academia and civil society and the media aren't doing that. They are not waiting for that, but they are using their influence, the following that they have, to promote coup. That certainly can be right.
No, so the point I'm making is I doubt the veracity of what the Honorable Minister said. I believe what is happening is that people who are not happy with critical comments about the government take that to or misconstrue that to being misinformation or disinformation. If someone were to say that, look, we need to be careful as a country because right now around the world, democracy is receding. We are witnessing at record levels countries where democratic values are declining. And we are in a region where the military have started taking over governance. Mali, Burkina Faso, Guinea, it has happened. So as a country, we need to be careful. I don't think that anybody should take that to be misinformation or disinformation. I think that is really the right message. But if that is taken to mean or constitute mis or disinformation, then the interpretation of mis-disinformation is being twisted. And I believe that is what is happening. I will be very, very happy if people at the national security are able to come out with data that says that over the last 3 months, these are pieces of information that have been put out there by people in academia, in civil society, and in media, which have proven to be false. And our belief is that after the time these people were putting out this information, they knew that this was false. And these pieces of information are expressions of opinion that endorse coup d'etats and endorse military rule. If they are able to come up with that, then of course we'll be having a meaningful conversation. We ran Fact Check Ghana in the last 4 to 5 months because of our concerns. Of course, globally there are concerns about misinformation, disinformation, and its implications. And of course, not just that. People are also concerned about toxic polarization around the world. People expressing views that certainly foment polarization. As a result, we've beefed up the number of people on Fact Check Ghana quite considerably. In fact, we are still recruiting more. But we haven't come across this pattern where people in civil society or media are deliberately putting out false information in order to create a certain impression that our country wouldn't be stable or our country, needs to be taken over by the military. And so I challenge them to bring out the data so that we can have a meaningful conversation.
And Professor Jampo, because you're also you're a professor in political science, the minister links this challenge, this trend they've identified, to the 2024 elections, and you monitor that space also. Isn't it the case that when we are approaching elections, we see these voices emerge, and often they do so under the cloak of civil society and media and academia, only for them to metamorphose into open, overt political voices post-elections? Isn't that part of the problem? That maybe the minister...
I do not think so. These voices you are referring to have always been there. Since we started the second term of government of the current regime, things were difficult, and these voices have always been talking. And so I find it difficult to understand or to appreciate the concerns that have been raised about individuals using their influence to deliberately peddle some misinformation just to be able to garner support for military intervention. I've heard people talking, but these are not people who have openly said that they themselves support military interventions. We've all been talking, and we've all said that if you have seen or observed what have happened to other countries, and even in our own political history, if you have read what happened when there were military interventions, coups wouldn't be the kinds of things you may want to be wishing for, because we have always argued, political scientists will tell you that soldiers have no business being in government. And so we do not wish for coup. But the point is that the very factors that create praetorian situations for military interventions in politics or in government to occur are real with us. And these are the things we are talking about. I was expecting Honorable Kan Dapaah to be talking about these factors that create the conditions for coups to occur. I was expecting him to have taken exception to the kind of governance that we are currently experiencing. I was expecting him to speak to the looting of state coffers and also the corruption in the system. As national security official or head, he should be talking about some of these things and be warning people perpetrating them that if you do these things, then you create the fertile ground for what we don't want to happen. But to target those who are complaining about the ills in the system as they rather being the ones fueling coups, I mean, it's completely, in my view, out of touch with reality. And like I said, I want to reiterate the point that this is not the Kan Dapaah that I know. This statement was prepared for him to go and read. Because if you meet this Kan Dapaah I'm talking about, he's a very level-headed person, and he knows the kinds of things that will fuel coups. He knows the kinds of variables and the precursors that always are there for the military to strike. And we are seeing most of them with us. So for me, for him to go and read some things like, I mean, politicians should be mindful about the caliber of people who surround them as public servants and who write their speeches for them. If you are not careful and you yourself, you don't soak yourself into what is really happening, then there's a tendency that they will write some of these speeches for you to go and read.
Except that he's a national security.
What he read to the hearing of the good people of Ghana was completely out of touch with reality.
Except that he's a national security minister, so he would definitely, before speaking on this and talking about using words like trends, would have been anchored on national security monitoring, evaluation, and assessment and briefings that he would have had.
Well, I doubt this particular thing about coups and potential threats and trends and all that. I mean, like I said, we all know the causes, we know the factors, the variables that are always there before they occur. And I'm saying that I expect somebody like him to be addressing or to be talking about how we have to address the problem of bad governance. I'm expecting somebody like him to be talking about how we have to address corruption, how we have to fight corruption. I'm expecting somebody like him to be talking about how we would have to bring a certain unity within the workforce fraternity, because as we speak now, we have a situation where a vast majority of the people are always laboring, and they are the ones who are always being taxed and overtaxed, and they are providing. It's like government is always squeezing water from stones from them just to be able to finance the opulent living standards of politicians and top appointees. I'm expecting him to be talking about some of these things as being the precursors to what we don't want. If you don't talk about them and people are complaining and you are saying that they are rather using their influence to be eliciting support for coups, then like I said, your statement and your speech is completely out of touch with reality. It's important we tell him in the face that next time when he wants to go and talk, he should come to reality. He should listen to what is happening on the ground. Speak to the ordinary people.
Prof, thank you very much. Also, you heard earlier Suleiman Abrahama, who heads the Media Foundation for West Africa. I want to hear from you, 055-1111-997. You've heard from the National Security Minister giving us his assessment of the security situation when it comes to talk around coup d'etats and instability, and he says they've identified as trend that borders on individuals within civil society, media, and academia. Do you agree? Share your thoughts. Newsnight in a minute.
Ajwa, the online page for the new business account was in shambles yesterday. We lost the page.
Tell me about it.
We started off very confident, and then the office broadband went down. When we set up the hotspot from the phone to reconnect, the data allocation also got finished.
You are joking.
I wish. The meeting room was hot. Kobe quickly tried calling them to give us some more time, but he had no airtime. Total chaos. They also gave us feedback that our website didn't have enough information. How can you run a business this way and hope to grow?
Oh dear.
Your business communication can be way better than this. Vodafone One Business is a complete communications package that gives you broadband with data transfer to mobile phones, mobile package with free calls among employees, landline with free calls and website design plus domain name registration. At Vodafone Business, we understand that strong connections within your business lead to success. Call 050-777-9000 or sign up by sending an email to sme@vodafone.com. Vodafone, further together.
Ready? Let's go. We all go bring some savannah.
Everyone is dancing, everyone is singing, because everyone is painting with Savannah. Savannah paints from Azar are affordable enough for everybody to fulfill their paint needs. Paint more, pay less. Savannah paints, we all go paint some.
We all go paint some Savannah. We all go paint some.